Bella want look at world.
Joseph Campbell popularized the term hero's journey. It is a template of stories that involve a hero who's comfortable at home at first, then goes on an adventure and faces hardship, is victorious in a decisive crisis, then comes back home transformed and changed. It is also called a monomyth, a single great story with many variations. You know, because many have been on this journey. Bilbo Baggins from The Hobbit, Huck Finn from The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and yes, Bella Baxter from Poor Things. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is my favorite book of all time. I love it more than any book I've ever read. I read it when I was 9 or 10, and when I was watching Bella Baxter, it reminded me of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and I fell in love with the movie. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn made me a book nerd and made me aspire to be an adventurous person, and Bella Baxter can do that again to many of us. There's this other book, Finding Me by Viola Davis, in which she states that the adventure, the journey, is actually the revolutionary transformation of self. So back to the hero's journey. First of all, the hero is not perfect. Huckleberry Finn used to smoke. So I'm not saying they are going to be our role models in terms of being great decision makers, but they can be our role models in terms of being people who do make the decisions for themselves, regardless of the decision being right or wrong.
Well, it's dangerous to go out without me.
I have adventured it and found nothing but sugar and violence. It is most charming.
Just the mere act of making the decision, I think that's very valuable and important. And now, the journey itself is not perfect. So the heroes are imperfect people with imperfect journeys, meeting imperfect people on the way and learning from them. This is the journey and this is life. Were we in their shoes, maybe we would have done something different. But that's not the point. For example, Poor Things is not a moral manifesto. At a deeper level, it's not even a feminist manifesto. I just see it as a journey with its own obstacles, with its own growing moments, heartbreaking moments, and euphoric moments. And yes, in Poor Things, because the protagonist, the hero, is a woman, some of her obstacles are because of sexism. That's why there's a flavor of feminism in the movie.
Reading Emerson speaks about the improvement of men. I do not know why he does not give advice to women.
But that's not the whole picture. The whole picture is the whole life. And for the most part, living your own life.
What? Why I keep it in my mouth if it is revolting?
So although Bella and Huckleberry Finn may make mistakes on the way, that's okay. Because sometimes not solving a problem costs more than solving a problem with the wrong solution. And you know, both Bella and Huckleberry Finn has this coming of age quality, this inexperience and innocence that makes them immune from ridiculous laws of society.
Good God, Bella, you cannot speak like this.
Lights of society.
Sometimes not knowing too much is an advantage, actually. So Huckleberry Finn did not have a proper education. That's very good, so he's not taught about the ridiculous things and laws about race. He doesn't know about the wrong or right of that time, and if he does know, it's not very much deep in his personality, and it's not very injected into his veins, so he can think for himself when it's the time to think about the issue, and he decides to not tell on Jim, and he decides to go to hell, if that's the cost. Bella is also away from society laws and, education. She is immune from lowering her voice, her demands, and her desires. So Bella and Huckleberry Finn both have fewer biases when they want to have a critical approach to the questions of life. They could think for themselves without a dictator telling them how to think. But it's not always like that.
Has she ever been outside?
No.
They grow up and the dictation begins. Bella wants to go outside.
Yes, out.
She wants to see the world.
Tell Bella other places.
Her father does not allow it. Also, Huckleberry Finn wants to go outside and his caregiver won't allow it. But they push, like every sane human must do. When Bella is at home, her life has no color. It's when she goes outside the house that the colorful journey of life begins for her. In the existential psychotherapy book, Dr. Yelom talks about the meanings of life that we ourselves create for ourselves. So when I was watching Poor Things, I could kind of see how Bella is going on different stages and she finds different kinds of meanings in life. I have made a video about how existentialists approach the meaning of life, and it's based on the existential psychotherapy book, and I put the link here so you can watch it if you want. So yes, when Bella goes out, she faces these different kinds of stages of meanings in life. When she puts her very first step into the world, she faces the taboo of female sexuality. But because she has not been brainwashed, she's okay with her sexuality, her desires, and she's comfortable in her own skin.
Polite society will destroy you.
There's this scene, almost at the end of the movie, she kisses her partner and without any shame or embarrassment, she gives advice. And when I watched it, I thought many women and many men are not comfortable being this much open to talk about what they want. You know, this is a simple thing, you know, the kiss, but I think it's a symbol of being, you know, open enough to talk about your desires and your sexuality. So if Bella were more familiar with the rules of society, she might have swallowed the advice and not talk about the kiss. You know, it's just a simple thing. I'm not trying to exaggerate it or make something big out of it, but you know, I thought of that when I watched the scene. And in some other scene, when culture and sexism tell her what to do, she slaps them in the face. But as she's not perfect, sometimes she gives up and obeys those rules.
Oh.
How marvelous. How do they get the pastry so crisp?
At first, she enjoys sex and food and dancing and music, and this is the hedonistic solution that Dr. Yelom talks about in the existential psychotherapy book when he talks about the meanings of life. This is a part of meaning in life. Then she digs deeper and she wants to learn more about herself and the world.
And ideas are banging around in Bella's head and heart like lights in a storm.
She starts reading books. She actively meets new people to expand her horizon. As Nietzsche says, become who you are. She wants to become who she is. And this is self-actualization, another stage of finding meaning in life. At first, she's optimistic until she meets someone new.
Here's a cynic.
Madam?
The cynic shows her the darker parts of the world, and because she is not rigid, she learns from him, although she doesn't agree with him 100%.
If I know the world, I can improve it.
Every person she meets has a new perspective on life.
We must experience everything, not just the good, but degradation, horror, sadness. This makes us whole, Bella.
And she tries to learn from each of them without looking at it as a 100% true fact. Meeting the cynic and learning about the darker parts of the world, she tries to help the others in the world, and she wants to make the world a better place. And this is altruistic solution as a meaning of life. So, as Dr. Yelom states in the existential psychotherapy book, on our journey to find meaning and to have meaning in life, we start with caring for ourselves, but we finish with caring for others. On the way, there are obstacles. At first, Duncan wants Bella to be free and see the world.
Do not care for polite society.
But then she wants to control the dosage of her freedom.
Your behavior is unconscionable. We behave.
Bella can be free as long as the consequences don't bother Duncan or any other authority, I suppose.
You were in my son.
What?
Throughout the history, millions of women have faced this corrupted form of freedom offered to them. And I think many men also have faced this kind of thing. But despite the obstacles, some people help. And also she has the determination to go on. So a scene that I really like in the movie is when Bella becomes poor herself. I'm not talking about the job she chose to overcome it. I'm talking about the mindset that she has in the scene. She has this scientist mentality that sees everything as an experiment.
Is it not an interesting experiment? We have nothing. How will we live now?
I don't know.
Exactly, that's the experiment.
And she wants to solve the problem instead of whining about it. She's thinking, what's the next step for me? I really enjoyed that part of the movie. I know her solution is not what most of us would choose, but that's not the point. The point is her decisiveness, her assertiveness, and her flexibility to think outside the box. But whatever the solution, she doesn't forget that she wants to change the world and she wants to become a better person.
I want that.
So finally, she goes back home, transformed and changed. She has more freedom now. She has more responsibility. She's more responsible for her life. And as Dr. Yolum states in the Existential Psychotherapy book, it's frightening to be one's own father, as liberating as it is. It's frightening to take full responsibility. Or as Dr. Yolum states, it's frightening to be one's own father. Towards the end of the movie, her barriers of life are mostly about misogyny and sexism. So the reason why Victoria, Bella's mother, killed herself becomes apparent. But that's okay, because as I said, Bella has become her own mother. And then she also loses Godwin. But that's okay too, because she has become his own father, as scary as it is. At the end of his Mississippi journey, Huckleberry Finn also becomes more mature and has more freedom, and he is more responsible for his life. Huckleberry Finn had an alcoholic, irresponsible father, but he can take care of himself now. Maybe that's the revolutionary transformation of self that Viola Davis talked about in the book Finding Me. Maybe that's the transformation that Joseph Campbell talked about in the book The Hero with 1,000 Faces. You know, becoming your own father, taking the responsibility of your life, becoming free, becoming you.
I want that.